We wanted to talk to you about Nat, and you said you wanted to talk about Nat's relationship with Andy Warhol. Well, you want to go ahead?
Sure.
Well, when was the first time you met Nat? Talk about the first experience meeting Nat.
Well, I met Nat in, I guess it must have been 1965. I think he was initially doing a story for, for an English newspaper. I think it was The Observer. And, Nat was a kind of eccentric for a photojournalist. I think that he was probably the best observer of that scene at the factory for a number of reasons. One is that he looked at it with a kind of almost anthropological eye.
Yes.
And, he wasn't, unlike most of the other photographers, for instance, David McCabe that I worked with, we sort of like staged things to look pop, and Andy in front of the Empire State Building, and Andy and Edie and Gerard Malanga and Chuck Wine doing a kind of Shiva pose. And also he used the lighting in the factory, which, little did he or anybody else that, one of the main factors about the factory was going to be the image that it created from the photographs taken there. The other people there, Stephen Shore was a sort of was a factoryite, I suppose, if that's a word, and of course Billy Name was the resident photographer. What's interesting about Nat's relationship to the factory and his images are that they're very noirish. I mean, in that he kind of managed to capture a certain sort of decadent ambiance. Nat, I think, wonderfully exploited the lighting there, which was, dark, sporadic, and he managed to catch these people in these very sort of languid poses that sort of they seem to express a kind of existential angst. They just look so interesting. That they look like they've seen everything, they've known everything, and the factory basically existed then and exists now in these photographs.